Okay, let's do a true or false. Now I'm going to need you to pause the video and just decide whether these are true or false, and then I'm going to go through these one by one. So a tick or a cross, A, B, C, D, and E. Okay, so I hope you've had a go with this. I'm going to show you the answers now. For the first one, we can see that the first significant figure is 4, and that is in the hundreds column. So we're rounding to the nearest 100, and this is closer to 400 rather than 500, so this is true. For 734, the first significant figure is 7, which is in the hundreds column, and we're going to round to the nearest 100, so this would be 700. However, this 0 is not needed, so this answer is actually not just wrong, it would actually be marked wrong in a test, even though 700 is equal to 700.0. When we are rounding to significant figures, we cannot have zeros that are not relevant to us, because it's to do with checking back with how the number has been rounded. So if I gave you 700.0 and I said it's been rounded to one significant figure or 3 significant figures, it should work. Now it doesn't work if I said to you this is rounded to 1 significant figure and you get 700.0. So the answer here should be just 700. 374, now the first significant figure is also in the hundreds, so we're going to round to the nearest 100. Now 374 is closer to 400 rather than 300, so this is false. That's because the decider is 7, so that means that this 3 has to become a 4, and then don't forget the zeros after that. 47.3, okay, first significant figure is 4, this is in the tens column, rounding to the nearest 10, so it's going to be 40 or 50. Now the decider is 7, so we're going to round the 4 up to a 5, and 50 is our answer. 40 is not correct, and in this case 47 is obviously not correct either. 47 would be correct if it was 2 significant figures, but we haven't looked at that yet, so 50 is the correct answer. Not 50.0, it has to be exactly 50. Now the last one, the first significant figure is 3, that digit 3, and that is, the place value is 0.01, so rounding to the nearest 0.01. So either it's going to be 0.03 or 0.04. Now 0.0347, well, the decider here is a 4, so the 3 stays as it is, and this is going to be 0.03, not 0.007. So the mistake that this person has made is they've looked at the last digit, which is the 7. So it's surprisingly common for silly mistakes to creep up with this topic, so go slowly and try all of the questions, otherwise you absolutely will not get this topic if you don't practice it. Very badly answered by students who don't revise this topic in particular. Okay, so let's go on to the next bit. Those are just the answers here, and then have a go with these questions, and then I'm going to go through the answers with you in a second. Okay, let's have go through the answers here. So firstly, to 1 significant figure, let's look at this. So that's going to be to the nearest 100, 936. Well, the decider is less than 5, so we're going to round this to 900. Notice that I'm not using the equals sign because they're not equal, they're rounded to, or roughly equivalent, roughly equal. 726, the first significant figure is in the hundreds column, so we're going to round this to the nearest 100, is going to be 700. 67.2, the first significant figure is 6, which is in the tens, so we're going to round this to the nearest 10, so either it's going to be 60 or 70. because the decider is 5 or bigger, in this case it's 7, this is going to become 70. 76.2. So that is in the tens column, the first significant figure. So because the decider is 6, that 7 has to become an 8, it's going to be 80. This time we've got some leading zeros, and we've got the first significant figure, which is to the nearest 0.01, the place value, the nearest hundredth. So we want to round this either to the nearest, 0.07 or 0.08. Now, because the decider is a 6, that digit is a 6, that means it's going to become 0.08, we round up. 0.489, leading zero, first significant figure, the place value is 0.1, so we're going to round to the nearest 0.1, so it's either going to be 0.4 or 0.5, and we can see this is very close to 0.5. The decider is also a 9, so it's going to be 0.5. Do not put any other zeros after that, even though there's a 9-1 there. You might think, well, I can add 2 zeros there. That would be wrong. So it's only 0.5. And then 0.7, leading 0. The 7 is to the nearest 10th. So this is going to be 0.7 or 0.8 when we round this. And you can see, because the decider is 0, it's going to stay as 0.7. And those are your answers. So I hope that was useful, and I hope you got these correct. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You've got 7 questions. There's more practice coming up here. So for these questions here, have a go at rounding all of these to the nearest significant figure, one significant figure, and then I'm going to show you the answers. Okay, here come the answers in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so here are the answers. It's going to be 700, 700 again, 750. Now, because there's a 5, the decider is a 5, this is going to become 800. 751 becomes 800. 752 also becomes 800. Okay, so here's some work for you to practice in your book. Try all of these questions. Don't skip any of these. It's really good practice. And I'm going to show you the answers in 5 seconds. Okay, here come the answers. This is what you should have got for all of these. Now, you have to be really careful that you haven't added any trailing zeros to the end, for example, after the decimals, for example, there. It has to be exactly as shown in the answers in red here. Okay, right. Next, last part. And then you know how to round to one significant figure. Right, this is an interesting exercise because you are going to fill in the blanks. What you'll notice is these blanks here, there should be digits inside these blanks. And you have to decide that if this number has been rounded to one significant figure to give you 0.2, what could have been in this blank? Now, some of these have more than one answer. So bonus points if you can name every digit that belongs in these. And some of these only have one answer. So have a go for a second, and then I'll go through the answers with you. Okay, let's go through the answers now. Now, 0.2 blank 1. Now, if the first significant figure is 2, which is a tenth. So this is going to be rounded to the nearest tenth, and it gives me 0.2. Now, if that was a 5, that would have become 0.3. If it was a 6, if it was a 7, if it was an 8, if it was a 9, that would have become 0.3. So we know it can't be any of those. Can it be 0? Yes, that would round to 0.2. Can it be 1? Yes. Can it be 2? Yes, because that will also round to 0.2. Can it be 3? Can it be 4? So we've actually got a range of answers here. This can be anything from 0 to 4. Second question. Now, 3 point blank 2. Now, if this rounds up to 4, we know that the decider has to be 5 or above. So we can just put 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And you can try these out just to test it yourself. We know that if, for example, it was 3.42, well, the first significant figure is 3, that's in the ones column. And we're rounding to the nearest 1. Is it closer to 3 or is it closer to 4? You can see it's going to be closer to 3. So this doesn't work. It has to be 5 to 9. Okay, so then the question C, this rounds to 3,000. Now, we have two options here. It's either going to be 3 or it's going to be 4 or 2. 2, 3 or 4. It's rounding to 3,000. Well, let's have a think here. Let's just try 3,000. Now, we know that because the decider is 5, we would have had to round this up, and that would have become 4,000. So 3 doesn't work. What about if it was 2? Well, the first significant figure is in the thousands column. So we're rounding to the nearest 1,000, and it's either going to be 2,000 or 3,000. Now, because the decider is 5, that's going to become 3. So what we can say is there's only one answer here. It has to be 2. Now, looking at question D, we know that we've got 2 blanks here, and this is going to round to 0.06. So what could go here that would then make this 6? Now, because we have a digit here followed by a 5 and the decider is 5, 5 or above means the previous digit is rounded up. So we know that that's going to have to be a 5 there. So 0.055 is going to be your answer, 0.055. We can just test this out by looking at the first significant figure. So in this case, it's this 5 here, and we know that's going to be rounded to the nearest 0.01. And that will, because the decider is 5, that becomes 0.06. There are no other answers for this. So 0.055 is the answer. Okay, so let's finish off there. We'll see you in the next video when we're going to be looking at zeros and nines when we're rounding to one significant figure. Smash the like button, hit subscribe. See you then.